I didn't get to read it, but I did get it, yes.
Okay.
So I've had really just an incredibly busy day. I saw that it had something to do with the directional plan, but I honestly, I didn't get a chance to read it. I'll read it in the morning and get back to you. Is that something that we need to speak about tonight, or is that something that I can call you on tomorrow, or? Oh, I think you're muted.
I'll probably speak about it tonight.
Okay, I can read it real quick if that would help. I just didn't get to all my emails today.
Okay, being 6:30, call the meeting to order. Let's see here. Call a roll. Let's see, who are we missing? Don and Ron.
Can you hear me?
Here,
Oh,
I'm
there's
here.
Ron. Okay, I didn't.
Can't see.
Okay,
I just
Very
got my name on the thing there tonight.
okay. Well, I didn't see who else. Oh, there's Don. Okay, got it. Okay, anyway, we call the meeting to order. I appreciate you all being on here, such short notice. We only actually have one item to address this evening, and that's the Dunn County Directional Plan. And so, Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Yeah. So I'm reading Mike's email, and did the rest of the committee get a chance to read it?
I did, yes.
Okay, because there are some issues in here that I think would be valid to talk about in light of the policy that's before you for the rec park. And so, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure how you want to proceed, if we want to go through it.
I guess I would ask, did anybody else get a chance to read that? I guess I don't even know who it was all sent to. Was it sent to everybody?
I did not receive it.
Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
receive it.
Okay.
I thought
And
it
then
was
I-
going to be forwarded to everyone.
Oh, because I didn't see it until an hour ago, to tell you the truth. So,
Yeah, I don't think I received.
okay.
So I mean, we can talk about it. I can download it and share it on the screen.
Yeah, if you could do that, then that because it would as far as some of the topics here, we would lead credence to it.
All right, so
But here again, it's something that we would really, well, I mean, they're good ideas, but I would need to, I don't want to make any snap judgments, let's put it that way.
yeah. Hang on one second here. So there was two things. There was the some maps, and then there's some documents here, and I'm going to share my screen, and I believe it's this one. Okay, so Supervisor Rogers, this is up here. Do you want to lead the discussion? Want me to read it, or how would you prefer to go through this, Mike?
Well, I guess I was just trying to put some things out there for discussion. I
Okay.
certainly, if you want to read it or you want me to read it, or if you want to throw it away, I guess I'm open to however we handle it.
I don't want to throw it away. I think that you took the time to get this together. I think it's worth at least reading through it and talking about about some of it, I guess, but I'm going to leave it up to you and the committee.
Mike, why don't you, as long as you wrote it and you put the thought process in behind it, why don't you lead the discussion on that? As far as what
Okay,
your thought processes were.
Thank you, Supervisor Maves. I guess I had a couple of thoughts that I realized that with our financial restraints, it's really hard to open up a lot of ambitious goals moving forward for the rec park. So I tried to, in my mind, break down some short-term possibilities that could allow us to improve what we have there now, and then some long-term options that I feel we could almost get into at a minimal cost. So in the short-term options, I thought that the cost to the county right now is somewhat minimal because the Racing Association takes care of the grandstands and hockey takes care of the other buildings. And then I think some of the volunteers from the Horse Association and clubs do a lot with there. So currently we don't have a lot of outlay and a lot of expenses, and I could be wrong. I'm making an assumption. If we maintain the current lease with hockey and we don't change it, and we maintain the current road that we're going down with racing, this can continue for the near future. We could potentially, I believe, at not a large cost, open up more area with moving some dirt around. There's a space between where the old jail, the city jail was, and the grassy parking lot as you come in on the west side, the south side there. Well, west side. I don't know the cost of this. I'm just kind of thinking, but it seems to me that could be opened up with potentially even some of our own equipment and stuff, level that off, increase the footprint there, not greatly, but enough to make a difference. As well as on the east side, there's probably a few acres that we could open up right there if we clean that edge along the property line. And that would give us more area right now to look at options. The long-term plan that I was kicking around is to try to locate some land, maybe not the most expensive land on the east side, or potentially the county owns land right now. There's a spot between the judicial center and the highway department. There's about 30 acres there. And there's an additional 10 acres of city land that maybe could become available that can't probably be built on because of the runway. So maybe as a parking lot, it would be, maybe it could be used as a parking lot. So that would open up almost 40 acres that we're not putting a lot of money out for. With that thought in mind, down the road, we could look to sell the facilities that we have now. The hockey, of course, we would want them to keep by the buildings they have, and they have the first right to do so in the lease. That we could potentially get enough money out of that to pay for building the buildings that are currently there without the hockey upgrades, of course. We could sell racing, the racetrack, because racing can't really relocate very well. Nobody wants them in their neighborhood, so they're there. We let them stay there. We sell it to them. There's still a fairly nice chunk of land there that we could sell off for additional revenues to put back into the fund, the budget, to build a couple more buildings. So it almost appears that we could get the same thing that we have now relocated to the space between judicial and highway and not have to really outlay very much money. Now, the bonus, I guess, that I see is now we could utilize them buildings all year round. And instead of maybe building another building storage for the highway department to store machinery in the winter, we could use them buildings in the winter to store highway equipment. I would like maybe to see one building that was maybe heated, and the county clubs and other organizations could use that throughout the winter. But them are longer term discussions. Maybe you could rent a little bit of space out to pay for the little maintenance that you would have there. So that in the end, on that long term, you move on from what we currently have with the space restraints, and you get into a new facility without outlaying much money at all. So that was my thoughts.
So if I could, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Mike, I followed everything except I'm not sure what the long-term use of the land between the judicial and over there and the highway. Is that to relocate the rec park over there and sell off what we have in this one? Is that, or was it just parking? Because I wasn't quite sure what maybe what you were thinking there.
No, I thought that could potentially be the new location for the rec park. And
Yeah.
then those buildings that you built there could be shared with highway
See, we
in
have
the
an issue.
wintertime.
Yeah, we looked into that, and there's an issue with the airport overlay in that it won't allow any public gathering spaces. So we couldn't hold the fair there. We could have a passive park, but we couldn't really have an active park there because of the airport overlay. They really the uses that they will allow in there, they'll allow a commercial use because the people aren't there all the time, but they won't allow any gathering spaces for the public. So because we did look into that area. So I think that a lot of what you put down is stuff that is absolutely worth keeping, in my opinion, and absolutely worth talking about either at a later date or when we get around to doing something with the rec park. So we did look at, just kind of for your information, we did look at selling off the rec park and then using that money to fund a rec park outside of the city, and the cost of the land, it sounds like we're going to get a lot of money, but by the time we look at purchasing land and then building, there isn't enough money in just selling the land and those facilities, given that we have some long-term commitments, especially with hockey, and looking to rebuild outside of the city. So that was part of a study that we did, and the conclusion of that study was that the county would be in a better position to keep what it has. And then I think, and to go along with some of the things that you're talking about, is to look at ways to reorganize it so that we get better use of the land. Currently, some of the areas for grading, we did look at that, and it's very expensive to move that dirt over there by the old police station, because it's that hill is rock. We get down not very far, and it turns to rock, so it's very expensive. But it would be usable flat space if we had the money and the resources to do that. I think the one big thing that that we discovered or that came out of the study. And I don't know that there are many on the committee now that they're still around when we did that study, but what we really found was that the rec park right now, it's, you know, the way it's configured and the way it's already been carved up by the two big users, you know, racing and youth hockey, that for the next big user for the fair, that they are kind of stuck, you know, with where they're at. There isn't any really a place to build or to relocate other things without giving up, you know, finding a big space. And when there just isn't one. Parking, you know, parking is a big deal, and you know, parking out at the between the judicial and highway would be a permitted use, but we'd have to truck people in so we could free up the space. But they've been looking at maybe restricting parking inside and starting to use that space anyway inside. And so, but there still would be a need for off-site parking somewhere. So I you know, personally, I think that there's a lot of good ideas in what you wrote, and I think a lot of those ideas need to get a bit more discussion, but probably at the time that we open up the rec park plan and start doing that again, and that would be up to the committee, you know, when and where you want to do that, and also part of, you know, just my schedule in terms of trying to fit some time in to do that. So I think that what you have, I think given what you have talked about and my brief history, I guess I'll turn it over to the committee, but then I would say that once the committee is finished talking, we'll go into the policy, and then we can talk about, Mike, about how your stuff would, could, should fit into maybe the policy. And if we need to tweak the language in the policy to better fit, you know, some of the stuff that you or the committee thinks is important that maybe isn't spelled out as clearly as you want, that is very doable. So I guess what I would turn it back over to the committee with my little bit of history and see what the committee has, either comments about this or questions, and then once the committee has made its way through this document and the discussion, then I would go into the policy and then see how we couldn't tie the two together.
Okay, and another thing is when we looked into moving the hill, there was also not only the rock and all that stuff, but that tower on top of the hill, as far as disturbing any, you know, land or whatever, so we don't do anything to that tower that's sitting actually on top of that hill.
And there's some utilities there as well.
Yes, yeah. So there is, yeah, those options have been looked at somewhat, actually quite a bit in the past, but it just the cost and the obstructions in the way, especially moving the hill, that just didn't seem profitable at the time when we was discussing it. So, but I guess response from anybody else on the committee as far as input as to, I mean, I thank you for putting this together. I know you put a lot of thought into it, and it, yeah, on face value, it looks like, oh yeah, this, you know, we could do this, do that. But as with most things, you know, it's not as easy as what it looks. So input from anybody else?
I'd like to ask Mike about that land that's by Quick Trip. That small triangle.
It's not a very big spot. It's just a little triangle that Quick Trip owns that realistically they may not be interested in selling anyway. I just saw that and I put it in there for discussion. I don't know much about that.
Oh, okay, well, I just saw it. I just had to ask.
I think one of the bigger items that we did talk about in terms of, some easy things to do and that might free up some space, but it would be space that the fair could use more for staging, and maybe it would help them out. But there was talk about flipping the horse arena with the pits, and and then reorganizing the pits to be more organized over in the horse arena, then that would free up some space both for the equine people who wanted to be part of the fair, but also that would be during non-equine events that there would be opportunities for other events in that space, rather than the pits, and because I think at least what we found during the study was that during the fair, the race is a big deal, and it takes up a lot of space, and there's a lot of shuffling that the county fair people have to do in terms of getting one space tore down, and getting the other one ready. And there wasn't that what they're really missing in some of these instances is just a staging area where they can keep stuff. There's just no place to put, to park the horse trailers on site, when racing is going on, and there's no place to do something to get the grandstand ready for another event, if the horse people are there and racing is there. So it's really trying to get 10 pounds in an 8-pound bag sometimes. And I think that the way that it was left was to sit on this, to think about this, but that is one item, and it's certainly not going to be cost-free. Redoing, flipping those two areas, there's cost involved in just moving them and rebuilding stuff, and so it's not a zero cost item. But when we did look at that as an option, it would free up some space. Now, whether or not it's enough to justify doing that right now, I think that would take a little bit more study.
Is there enough space? Would there be enough space over in the horse area for, I know there are times like when they do the Punky Manor and things like that, they have a lot of cars that come in. Would there be enough space over there to actually have the race cars park over in that area?
Well, the pits, yes. I mean, I know. Yeah, are you talking what kind of parking?
Yes, I'm talking about the pits.
Yes, we did look at that, and we had a fairly lengthy discussion with racing about that, and they were open to the idea, and at least at first blush, it appeared that there is area over there. There's some other things that have to get moved that when we looked at that, there's some storm facilities that we got to make sure that we can account for, but I think that with that, if there's interest, it may be something to do a more detailed study. But I think it's the short answer is everyone thought that it would work, that there is enough room for the pits over there, and then there's plenty of room to put the equine at the other place, and then repurpose some of the additional space.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just want to comment that I thought Mike did a good job of this. Short-term options, well organized, and I don't really have anything to add to this that I could add to that. But I have been thinking a little bit about after Monday night's meeting, where we kind of discussed how county's finances are not in good shape and probably going to get worse before better. And the manager asked us to prioritize company or county operations. I'm wondering if we should put a priority on the value of the rec park itself. Now that's a pretty basic question. I don't have an answer to it, but for instance, how important is the rec park to the overall or primary mission of the county? And I think maybe that's a question we need to ask before, at least ask and try to answer at least before we start looking at anything else. It's just my thought. I don't mean to throw a monkey wrench into the operation here, but after Monday's meeting, I started thinking about that.
That's not a monkey wrench at all. Actually, that's exactly what we need to do. And you're absolutely right. As far as how high a priority would that fall on our list? That's exactly what the county manager is looking for. And so it is one of those things where when push comes to shove, what gets eliminated? I mean, that's the bottom line. If you
Yeah.
don't have enough money, something has to go. So you're spot on, Don, with what is the priority of the rec park itself, and then the next question is how much money, if any, where does the dollar value fit in the whole equation? So you're right. We need to prioritize, and that's what all the county board members need to do, is to go through and look at everything that the county spends money on. And here again, go through and prioritize what is number one, what is number two, what is number three. So it's, you're spot on, Don.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I would like to stop sharing and maybe just bring up the policy and see how that fits in with the discussion, and not to call the discussion, but maybe to kind of make sure that it either fits with what we're with the policy, or that we need to change something in here. So could I, with your permission, could I change and share the other document?
Yes, because I actually think the discussion on that is on hold for now, what we were talking about earlier, because like I say, and like Don brought up, as far as prioritizing on how that all falls back in, because if that comes in way low or whatever, it may not have, the funding at all. So please move forward with what your original plans are.
Thank you.
Well, while you're sharing that, I'll bring up the if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Sure, that's fine.
The question that I asked when we talked about the Dunn County Rec Park before, is the Dunn County Rec Park more of a liability or is it more of an asset? Do we make money on the Dunn County Rec Park, or is that just something that costs us money to maintain?
At this point, without actually having the CFO online, whatever, but I would be, in my opinion, safe in saying we do not make money on the rec park. If you look at it as a straight profit loss, bottom line numbers, no. In the past, the discussion has been what is the value to the county residents, and there are the intangibles other than just dollars and cents. So how do you put a price tag on happiness and a smile on a kid's face? But I understand that everybody has a different scoring mechanism for that. And here again, we get back to the like Don said, prioritizing. If we feel that it's not a value to the citizens of Dunn County, and the whatever, why, then that's one side of it. But to actually answer your question, do we make money? No, we do not make money on the rec park, in my opinion. But here again, we would have to ask the CFO to get definite answer. But I'm sure the answer is no. We do not make money as dollars and cents.
But it brings in tourism and it brings
Yes.
in dollars, but a lot of that is for the cities, and those are the intangibles I understand you were talking about. So
Yeah, you're
I
absolutely
understand
right.
that.
Yep.
The other side of this is I know that, just kind of thinking out loud, I know that at one point in time, it was more in the county. And now with the way that the city has been built up, now it is more inside the city than it was before.
Yes, that's true. The, yeah, economic development has, yeah. Yes, that's a true statement.
So I
Okay,
I
Any
think,
other-
I think if we look at this document that's on the screen now, and I think it absolutely fits in with the discussion here. If you look at the issue, and I apologize that I brought the previous version to the last meeting. It was not this version, and we were kind of I wouldn't say in a hurry, but I didn't take the time to walk the committee through this, and then I would have realized that it was the wrong one. I would have brought the right one up, but that's water under the bridge. But I did want to apologize to the committee for bringing the wrong one to the meeting. But it's important that we talk about the issues and the techniques now, and especially given the discussion that's going on. So if you look at the issue of the rec park plan, how can we develop a Dunn County rec park that serves the needs of the various current and future users? That's kind of what everyone has been talking about this evening in terms of prioritizing. So I mean, is it even something that the county should be considering? And the policy is, at least for now, is the county is committed to retaining the Dunn County Rec Park as a multi-use public amenity and property that accommodates the annual Dunn County Fair, the Menominee Youth Hockey Association, the Red Cedar Raceway, and a variety of other compatible public and private activities and events in a clean, attractive, safe, and accessible way. That's kind of what the policy statement says. And so you know, we would the implementation techniques, and I think this kind of fits in with the stuff that the Supervisor Rogers brought forward, that develop and adopt a rec plan to set forth the vision for future use of the park, including goals, objectives, and recommendations for existing and future uses. Known and possible use groups, the full range of anticipated activities, current and future use areas, existing structures, proposed desirable improvements, spatial improvement, cost analysis, and possible funding sources. That's kind of, I think that's kind of what Supervisor Rogers was speaking to in terms of how can we, if we're going to keep this rec park, what could we do to make it a better fit for the now and into the future users. And so I think a lot of what he said fits exactly into that one. And then so that means that there would be a concerted effort to reevaluate the rec park, and that would lead into number two, that that we would redo or finish actually the rec park plan. But following adoption of the rec park plan, we would seek to implement the goals, objectives, and recommendations. And so there would be a way that we would a method to implement those goals and objectives, and regular reference to the plan and evaluation of the consequences of the proposed uses on the vision of the plan. And so as users come in and go out, we need to compare them and weigh them against the plan and see that they fit and we have space and we can afford them, and then look for ways to implement this plan for existing and proposed uses and site improvements. And so almost all of what Supervisor Rogers was talking about is we would look for ways and recommendations for the proposed uses and the site improvements, if that's what it was. And then once the plan is in place, is to reevaluate and update the plan at least once every 5 years to ensure it remains current with respect to changes and ongoing conditions, and then bring all that to the county board. So it seems that through the discussion tonight that unless the group is ready to say no, we should just fold up our tent and walk away, it seems that the policy is that right now the county is committed to retaining that park, and as Supervisor Keeter said, well, maybe we need to prioritize. Well, that would be something that you would do, after you adopt the policy, and you could go through and evaluate and then figure out what you want to do. And that would be the rec park plan. And then you would go through and follow it. So I think that this, at least from a planning perspective, it seems that the policy is to keep what we have right now until we can have discussions and come up with a plan that says, all right, this is how we're going to make better use of our resources. And so that's kind of what the policy is saying. It doesn't mean that the county is committed to retaining the rec park forever. It just means until a plan is developed that says how we want to use it differently or improve it. So with that, I guess I would turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, and for comments and questions about now the discussion that we're doing, and see if it fits within the policy that we're trying to write here.
Okay.
I got a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I was going to ask for questions. Go ahead, Ron.
What's the time for like a short term considered to a long term? How many years are we talking for a short term? Like 5 years? And then
Yeah,
a long
normally
term is that?
Yeah, normally it's 1 to 5, and long-term is beyond that, but I mean, if your long-term goal is 100 years, well, then maybe short-term is 20, but it kind of really depends. But generally speaking, yeah, 1 to 5 years is a short-term look at things.
So for instance, like if we wanted to build a new horse barn, and would that be considered a long-term if we wanted to build something like that?
Well, I guess it would depend on the priority of when you wanted it built. If you just put it in the plan that says we want to build a horse barn, well, then that's a long-term goal. But if you say, well, we'd like to do this within and give it 2025. Well, I guess it depends on how you couch it and where you want to place the important pieces in terms of getting something done sooner than later. So it could be either. Depending on how the committee and the county kind of positioned it.
And then, position. And another need is we need a stage. We need a stage really bad. If we do have a fair ever again, that would be something that we really need too. And that would be part of a short-term plan too.
Yeah, and we looked at that, with the park plan that we've started, and so we know that there are some areas, but part of the problems, for a permanent stage is that where can we put it, because some of the best places are in hockey's footprint, and so there's other things that are vying for the same spaces that we need for the fair, and it's and so I think that rather than focus on, well, we need a stage, which is important, I think that part of the planning process would be to understand where the stage could be, and if it could be temporary or if it needs to be permanent. If it needs to be permanent, well, then we need to find a place where we can leave it and not encroach on the footprint of at least one of the other users.
Yeah, and then, okay, say for instance, like when you built that cattle barn, how did that get involved? Did they put that in a plan once earlier? And then when they built the shed before the hockey was there, was that?
I guess I'm not sure of the question, but most of those buildings that were there before hockey's lease was finalized, but as part of that agreement with hockey, there was a boundary that said what the footprint could be.
And was there a plan for that so that they could say what? I didn't catch that. Oh, my internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, there was a plan, you know, the footprint was as big as it is because hockey had plans of expanding. And so the footprint that they have allowed for quite a bit of expansion by hockey. I don't think that that's going to happen. At least it's not happening now. But that's why the footprint is as big as it is. You know, during the negotiations of that lease agreement and the footprint, that was part of hockey's vision, was to have a bigger ice arena.
My computer went out for a while, but it just came back. So I
Okay.
missed most of what you said.
All right. Well, if you want to rephrase your question so that make sure that we understood it, then I could summarize again.
Well, back before they had any buildings on the fairgrounds, they had a plan to build a cattle barn. And then they built that bigger shed that didn't have a hockey rink at the time. And was there being any plans to build anything else besides that way back then?
We didn't find a formalized master plan for the rec park. Things just happened where they would fit, it seemed like, and to meet a need. And that became problematic, is why we said it was important to have a rec park master plan, is because space is a premium, and if you want to do something, you need to know where it's going to fit, and how it's going to be used, and how it's going to kind of mingle with the other users in the park. So no, there wasn't a formalized plan when those buildings were put up, and hockey wasn't even in the mix at that time. It was only the rec park and the fair at some point was using it, as you know, most of the time, and racing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions or thoughts at this time? Based on what Bob has said here, as far as, or do we, I guess I'll just leave it up to that. If you have any other questions in general, or do we just maintain status quo, and for now, until we actually determine what is the priority, and you know, go from there? Because as he read the policy and the techniques, you know, that is the current policy, current plans, and so that's where it's at. So I guess I'll put it out if there are any
Mr.
more
Chair?
questions. Or yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And I guess listening to Ron and about building additional things, and obviously in here, it says if we want to do that, we need to come up with a plan and come up with monies for doing it. And I guess to me, and listening to what Don said about the meeting on Monday and the finances of the county, I guess to be honest with you, I don't see us doing anything in the near future because everything is going to cost money. And he was talking about a stage, and I go, well, there's kind of almost a natural type of amphitheater here if you think about where the sliding hill is over there. That says, and if you put something over in that area, you would almost have a natural slope there where people could sit on the hill and not have to look at the person directly in front of them and be able to see a stage if it were there. But I don't think it is good fiscal plans to try to talk about building those things right now when the finances are in the shape that they're at. I think the policy as it's written is something that is attainable and doable. And I guess right now, with the state of the finances in the county, I don't see us making a lot of capital improvements to that at this time. Not to say that the long-term goal won't be to do that, but
And
Yeah.
the policy is flexible enough. It doesn't commit this committee or the county to doing anything today or at any time until the county feels it's time to do something. And so that's kind of the policy. I mean, it's talking about, it's a resource, and until we come up with a plan, and that plan would be spatial and cost analysis, we're just going to kind of idle at this point until it's time to look at a plan. And it could be a piecemeal plan. It could be a full-blown plan, but the policy doesn't preclude or write out or eliminate the need for any of the stuff that you folks have been discussing tonight, prioritizing at some point and seeing what to do with the park, rearranging spaces, looking for areas to expand uses. All of that is built into the policy. It's just that the policy says that, that we would like to have a plan that's developed that speaks to those things, and so that we know that it's going to fit and we can afford it.
Right. So the fact that we didn't have this policy statement the other night when we moved this forward on is one of the reasons to actually have this meeting short notice like this. So it was my intent or my understanding that we needed to move this action forward with this policy as it is written, if that's, unless there's changes you want made to the policy.
Correct.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
To the
Yeah,
policy.
the committee can certainly change, and we would make those changes, so that you don't have to swallow the big pill if you think there's pieces that you don't want to swallow.
Right. But that, I mean, here again, it's just a statement that this is the policy for the rec park at this time, which, I mean, as with all, policies and statements subject to change.
Yeah.
So I guess that was the main purpose of the meeting tonight, was to actually adopt this instead of what we adopted the other night, to move it forward as to this is what the policy is.
Yeah, this isn't much different. This isn't much different than what you adopted, except that it talks in more detail about the implementation techniques. And so, the one that you adopted the other night, it was the first draft, and so it was still that we need to have a plan, but we're going to be on hold until we can figure out how to do the plan. This still says the same thing, but it lays out a few more talking points. So.
Yeah, Mike, question?
I guess I misunderstood what this meeting was for. I kind of got us sidetracked. And for that, I kind of apologize. What I brought up wasn't necessarily this plan's already in order. What I brought up was the discussion within this plan, it seems. That probably wasn't necessary at this time.
Well, no,
I don't know.
it's any discussion is good as long as it's relevant to what we're talking about. So, that's fine. That's fine because it does bring examples as to, okay, if this is our policy, how would we address those issues? So actually, it worked out really good as examples to define what the policy would be. So, no problems with that. That was no problems at all. So I guess I'll ask for a motion to move this policy statement on to the exec committee and then forward at this time. Is there a motion to move this on?
I make a motion to,
I'll make a motion to move it on.
Okay, Ron made a motion and then Mike will second that motion. The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other further discussion on the motion at this time? If not, all in favor, say aye.
aye,
Opposed, the same sign. Okay, motion's passed and we'll move it on. And another thing to remember as far as, and this was a discussion that was brought up before when we were looking at the fair and stuff. I know the horse clubs, the horse people at one time was willing to do fundraisers if we were going to relocate stuff and things. So it isn't as if the county itself might have to outlay the whole capital expense. There may be other sources of revenue if we do decide to move forward that way, or if we want to. Then I know before, like I say, there was discussions. They said they'd be willing to do it, and then things, just kind of went quiet. And then obviously last year was the lost year for everything. So anyway, it's just, but getting back to what Don said, it is we need to put a priority on this because of after a meeting on Monday night, the board knows where we're sitting or where we're started to. So, I guess as a closing statement, I would just ask that all the board members go through that outline that Mr. Miller put out as far as prioritizing. And, in our own minds, because that's the discussions that are going to be coming up as to what do we consider number one, number two, number three, and whatever you count as number one, what's the funding avenues for that? So any other discussions at this time or any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have one question, and I know that last year, when the racing season was going to start up, we had a group that came to us about possibly changing the Red Cedar Speedway, or not changing, adding to that speedway for a motocross event. Does anybody else remember that? Do we know whatever happened to that?
There was a walkthrough and a discussion with the racing and with the fair and with Scott. And Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong. After that initial meeting, then all discussion kind of ended. Is that correct, Scott?
Yes, the last I talked with the guy, he was concerned about putting a lot of time and effort into it, not knowing where it was going to go with regards to COVID. He would have to put a lot of time and money and effort into this, and if it wasn't going to go anywhere because of the restrictions because of COVID, then he wasn't really on board with it. So that's where it left, and I haven't heard any more from him. Now with things changing with COVID numbers, I would reach out to him and find out if he has any thoughts anymore. If we're going to have, now that we're having a racing season, as it gets closer to having a fair, maybe we'll see what his thoughts are, if he wants to do something with that.
Okay, that's just something that could bring in additional revenue without costing the county much to, if anything, to do to set that up. So I just thought I'd bring that up.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? If not, again, thank you for attending on such a short notice. I appreciate it. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Good night.